Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artist Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more.
Well, my name is Michael Pietragalla. That's the proper way to pronounce it. My company, if you want to call it a company, it's Floating Stone Woodworks.
Okay.
Which is actually the translation from English. The Italian Pietragalla means stone that floats.
Stone that floats.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I always thought it meant stone rooster. I guess that would be gallo. I don't know.
Rooster is chicken is gallina.
Yeah.
I don't know what rooster is. But galla, G-A-L-L-A, means to rise above, effervesce, to bubble, to float.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Those are all great terms, especially
right.
for.
It's very optimistic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, did you start off as a woodworker?
No, I started off when I graduated from Swain School in 1972. Was a painter, and they didn't teach photography there, but I was also a photographer. So I started out as a visual artist, classically trained. And soon afterwards, I got hired by my landlord, who started to teach me carpentry. So I went from carpentry to, fussy trim work, and eventually evolved into furniture making. And I make a lot of things out of wood.
Yeah.
Just, sculptural things, carvings, furniture, little embellishments of carved things in my furniture, stuff like that.
So that was really a good, I guess back in the old days, used to call it a bread and butter job for a painter.
Yeah, being a carpenter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Kind of like what if you see some of the other Swain grads nowadays, like Chuck Hawk, Don Wilkinson. I mean, they're visual artists, but they're working with their hands to make a living.
Okay. Now, we're hoping to reach a broad audience, so the Swain School means nothing to hopefully the people on the fringes of this broad audience. So could you explain what the Swain School was all about?
Well, I don't know a lot about the history of the school. I know that it was founded, I'm going to say, in the 1800s. The Swain Free School, it was primarily a school that young women went to learn fashion design. And eventually it grew and grew and grew. It has always been on the corner of Hawthorne and County up until when it was sold. All the buildings were sold when it went down the toilet. But it was quite a very active, small private school. It was a great place to go to school, especially in the 60s when things were changing and developing. Swain was changing and developing and growing very quickly. It was a great school. I mean, my graduating class was, I think, 12, 13 people. So everybody got to know everybody.
And these are bonds that still exist today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's still, when you tell people you went to Swain School, some people have heard of it, like you said, and some people haven't, as you said. And it's always fun to reconnect with the Swainees, as we refer to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the painting part of your life, do you still paint? Have you returned to it occasionally?
No, I haven't really painted not much, but my drawing is invaluable as far as even when it comes to design. Furniture design. Some of my carvings are actually kitchen utensils. Spoons and spreaders and cheese knives and things like that, and to try to come up with something that's unique. You see things and you don't want to copy that, but you say, oh, that's a great idea, how can I embellish this? So the drawing aspect is very valuable. That learning that has become very valuable to me. And I still take a lot of pictures. One of the only reasons that I got a smartphone was to get the camera that comes with it. So, I go for walks and here's my camera and I'm just clicking everything. One of the things I do in the wintertime, we have some of the most beautiful sunsets in this part of the country here in New Bedford. And my studio windows face west. So I'm like a moth to a flame. I mean, I'm taking pictures of beautiful sunsets, and I post them on, Facebook and the Hat Street Studios page, my own page, and just look at this. Isn't this beautiful? Just to try to share it with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. As far as the woodworking now, when you're doing the utensils, the spreaders, and I guess the salad sets and other things.
Spoons, cheese boards.
From a marketing standpoint, these would probably be your entry-level items. They're less expensive than obviously buying an entire table that you've designed and built. But there's an interesting organic feeling to them just by looking at them. What's that all about?
I don't know. I find that people like to grab and feel and touch these objects like they're a piece of sculpture. And of course, I work on them so they're so smooth. And like you said, the organic shapes of them. When I do outside fairs or open studios, things like that, more people come up and they touch. They'll pick it up and they'll touch it and they'll grab it. And I feel like saying, it's going to cost you $10 to touch that. I'm sorry. $25 to touch, $15 if you buy it.
If you buy it,
and
yeah.
take it home.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, it's just something that comes natural to me.
Yeah.
Even the furniture, people always like to touch it. They touch the top. They feel the corners. They touch the handles, which if I've done something that's been carved. I think people are just naturally drawn to it. And I don't prevent them from touching. I have signs out that say, please touch.
Yeah. So it's the tactility that they just want to, I guess, validate their assumptions. Oh, that,
I don't know. I just find it's like human nature. They just see a shape. And I mean, I guess I could take an independent poll and look and see which shapes people pick up and touch more than others.
That would be interesting.
Maybe the curved spoons or the curved long-handled spreaders are probably more interesting for people to touch than just a flat-looking cheese knife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, we're not on video, so it's hard to show what we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll have pictures that we can put on the pod page. What else do you do beside the utensils? There are boxes and other things work our way up the line.
The little treasure boxes that I make. Of course, there's, unlike the cheese knives and spreaders, I mean, I make the same design over and over again out of different woods. And let me throw in here that all those things are made out of recycled wood. Wood that I've come to make smaller pieces out of bigger pieces when I make a table or a chair or whatever I make. There's always leftover pieces. And it's just kind of a thing with people who work with wood. They're always left over with smaller pieces, and they put it in a bucket or an old milk crate or something. They say, someday I'm going to do something with this. So I've decided to do stuff with it.
Yeah, kind of an Italian kitchen too.
Yeah.
You never throw anything out.
Never throw anything out.
Yeah.
So the same goes with the treasure boxes. They're little scraps of walnut or bird's eye maple or purple heart or whatever that. They're too small to do anything else except maybe make a top of a box or a knob or some adornment, an inlay or whatever it is. And the boxes themselves are all one of a kind.
Why do you call them treasure boxes?
Well, because I don't know. I couldn't think of any other name, to be honest with you. They're not jewelry boxes. They're keepsake boxes. They're boxes that a man or a woman or a young person can have to put whatever they want to put in it. One box I made that has sort of a false tray inside that you lift that out and there's like a hidden compartment underneath, which I think, I've always been fascinated by boxes. You see a box with a lid on it and you always want to open it. which is another thing that people do when they're on display. They always want to open it. What's inside? And then they go, "Ooh, look! It's little dividers, or it's purple inside, or whatever."
Yeah, Pandora had that problem too.
Exactly. Maybe that's how it came to me.
Yeah.
But I call them treasure boxes because they're they're not made for men or women, anybody specific. It's just you want to put your treasures in it, and here's the thing for you.
Whatever those treasures may be.
It could be your eyeglasses. It could be
shells from the beach and beach glass.
Right.
Things that mean something but have a high emotional value but probably have no monetary value whatsoever.
Right. Or it could be, separate compartments that, these are my, my old wristwatch, or, my Mickey Mouse watch when I was a kid, or, for a woman, special earrings or coins or rings, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah, treasures.
Yeah, treasures. Old ticket stubs from the 60s.
Yeah, which are fetching some big dollars now.
Yeah.
Moving up the scale in your production, in your catalog, so to speak. What's next above the boxes now? Are we already starting to go into furniture now, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, working small is good because it's not necessarily any quicker than making a piece of furniture, because I do get very detailed. I'm very detail oriented. There's a lot of time in a piece of furniture. There's a lot of time in a box. There's time in making the kitchen utensils. But I guess the next step up, would be the furniture.
And what kind of furniture do you make?
Mostly tables. I find that tables are utilitarian. People always want a table to put something on. You've got this table here. They want a sideboard or a hall table, someplace to throw the mail or the keys when they come in. Maybe they want to draw in it. Maybe they don't want to draw in it. I make some pretty basic tables. I make some tables that look like they came from another planet. They're just organic, taking elements from, mostly Asian design. That's what's mostly influenced me.
Okay. It's kind of interesting. I mean, when you're talking about the tables, all of a sudden there's the kitchen table, there is a side table, there is a dining room table, there's a candle table, lamp table, and it goes on. But they're all tables, but they, like with chairs. Chairs are pretty much a chair. You sit in it.
Right.
Although I'm still trying to figure out what an occasional chair is. Is it sometimes a chair, sometimes not?
Right. Sometimes it's a table.
They actually have those, right? That they flip over and become something. But that is an interesting concept in that. Now you also go up in the case furniture, right? Which people I know that term because I used to work for a furniture guy.
Yeah, casework being like cabinets. Standing cabinets, freestanding cabinets, boxes, bookcases, things like that. I've made a few things for people at the Hat Street building, actually, to display. There's a ceramicist who asked me to make some things so she could take her work out and display it at outdoor shows or these things, so she could put her pots and cups in them. So I mean, I work with people and come up with unique designs like that.
Now, you've been doing this how many years?
I've been doing just the furniture probably since 1997.
Okay.
So quite a while.
Yeah.
I've had people come to me and they said that they have an antique cabinets that looks like it came out of an old apothecary. Mm-hmm. With an oak top and heavy, thick oak doors with beautiful trim on them. And, this was my aunt's or my grandmother's or whatever, and I really don't want the whole thing, but I wondered if you'd make a liquor cabinet for me or a cabinet for my daughter's TV in her dorm, and I've done these things.
So repurposing kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you repurpose. You build from, use the term scratch.
Yeah.
Based on a design either you present or something that they describe to you that they wanted based on their taste or their needs, for function.
Right. His like I said, here's a row of cabinets with drawers and doors, and what can you make from this? So that's when I go home and I draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I put my head to work, and then my drawing skills come back.
Right. And there's also the refinishing part, where you're trying to refinish. There's a fine line between refinish and restore, right?
Yes, refinish and restore.
Okay.
Right, I'm working on a table right now that's sort of an arts and crafts design, and it needed some TLC, some things where a leg was falling apart, which was repaired years ago, and I'm working on that right now.
Mm-hmm.
I fixed one side, and then I went to the other side and said, "Oh, here's a loose leg," and as I tapped that leg out of its joint with a rubber mallet, and I was holding the other side of the table, and then the leg on this side just split apart.
Oops.
So what was done was that two pieces of wood was glued together to make a thicker piece,
Mm-hmm.
which was done in the olden days,
Yep.
because it was a cheaper way to make furniture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I make furniture, I don't like to do that, but sometimes you can't get pieces of wood that are that thick. So yeah, you glue two pieces together. So anyway, the glue had dried out, the old hide glue from the old days. So now I call the customer and say, "Guess what? I found this. It's like taking your car in to be repaired." "Okay, go ahead and fix it."
Right.
So I do that.
Yeah, it's the old weak against strong. As soon as you repair the weak and make it strong, now you'll have whatever's adjacent
Found
to
something
it.
else that's weak.
Yeah, it's like a domino theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you located now?
I'm at the Hatch Street Studios.
Okay, what is that?
That's an old mill building. Originally, it was owned by a gentleman who was very much an entrepreneur, and he wanted to start sort of an incubation for small businesses to grow there. He charged little or no rent, and it was his idea that people would grow from there, and a lot of people actually did start there, and they've grown and they've gone on to Industrial Park and whatever, and their business has grown like crazy. I've been there since 2001. I first started working there for another furniture company, and then got into my space with another skilled person. We shared that studio for a number of years, and eventually he went on to get his own place.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, a lot of people refer to us as hatchlings, being an incubator.
Hatchlings. Interesting concept.
Yeah. So they grow there and then they go on.
Right.
I've just stayed there because
Okay.
it's a great building. The new owner, Jeff Glassman, purchased the building about 3 years ago, and he's converted the second floor to more studios. The building is full now. It's crazy full of all kinds of people. I don't know who half the people are now.
Mm-hmm.
One point in time, I knew everybody. Now it's like, you see a new face. It's like, "Are you here to see somebody?" "Oh, no, I have a studio here." It's, "Oh, hi, how you doing?"
I've heard estimates of over 60, 80 or more. At one point at its peak, near 90.
I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know how many studios there are. I know they're all rented,
Right.
and a lot of studios like myself, have studio mates.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say on the average, probably about 70, 75 people there.
Right. I mean, just walking down the hallways, it's like walking through this massive art gallery because
There's
the
art,
painters have
yeah.
stuff hanging on outside.
Right.
It's kind of cool.
There's 3D in the hallway. There's 2D on the walls. It's crazy.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. Now, the New Bedford had been named and or ranked in 4 national, international, serious ranking resources, whatever you want to call them, as one of the most creative cities in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first one started off in 2011. It was a result of Professor Richard Florida, who came up with the idea of the creative economy, and he had a system of that he applied, and New Bedford met the criteria, and I think they were like somewhere around. Well, they were within a 10. They were on the bottom
I think
end
they're
of it,
like
but
third or something like that.
Was it third?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. I mean, but then again, it all depends on the survey because it's been all over the place. Do you believe that the city is one of the most creative cities on just say the East Coast?
I grew up here,
Uh-huh.
and I remember when downtown was the bustling. I mean, there were police directing traffic and assisting people crossing the street on Saturday afternoon. It was crazy, and of course, anybody who's my age remembers on, I think it was Thursday nights.
Thursday nights was cruise night.
Was cruise night,
Yeah.
and Purchase Street and Pleasant Street was the Strip,
Yeah.
and it all died after a while, with the North Dartmouth Mall, and downtown tried several things. The biggest shot in the arm to me was the Star Store in BCC, and when I first moved back here, of course, like other people, I moved away, but I came back, and in like 1999, 2000, things were still kind of dead, and then it got to be kind of a joke. About 5 years later, it's like there was so much to do, you didn't know where to go, what to do first. There was so many galleries, not just downtown New Bedford, but Dee Dee Shattuck and Colo Colo and all these galleries. It's like they were all having openings on the same night. It's like, geez, I'm so tired now.
Yeah. Oh, just
tired of doing stuff.
Yeah, for those people on the fringe not familiar with the area, BCC is Bristol Community College, and there was a
Star Store.
The Star Store was, I guess,
CDPA, part of UMass Dartmouth.
Right, but the Star Store was like New Bedford's own Macy's or Jordan's or whatever.
Oh yeah, it was a huge department
Yeah.
store in the day. Once again,
Right.
Yeah, that's where people went.
If you got a job there, if your dad had a job or your mom had a job there, it was like, wow, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
It was a classy job.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So CVP, or the College of Visual and Performing Arts from UMass, under pretty much the drive of the state senator Mark Montigny, they took over that building, didn't let it get torn down, and everybody expected this instantaneous economic boom. All these students coming in. Oh, so all the all the merchants that were hanging on thought, oh, these kids, they're gonna help me survive, and then they didn't realize that these kids, they're students. They don't have a lot of money.
Right.
And then when classes were over, everything went dark again because everybody went home. But at some point in time, it was like a chicken and the egg thing where, okay, people didn't want to get apartments because there were no conveniences. So at a certain point in time, we had conveniences and apartments, lofts opening up. And I remember going to the first AHA. AHA is art, history, and architecture.
Right.
Lee Held is the founder director of it.
Well, let me correct that, actually. Yeah. There's a guy who had this idea years ago, and excuse me for correcting
No,
but I have
it's
to
good.
give this guy credit because I knew him for years. He passed away unbeknownst to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And that man's name was George Saulnier. And
was he a former city councilman?
No, he was an artist. He did etching on glass.
Okay.
He used to work in leather. He did some fine tooling of leather.
George Saulnier.
George Saulnier. He became homeless after a while, and actually, I think he kind of enjoyed it. I bump into him every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
He literally would bump into me. When I say that,
Mm-hmm.
he would crash into my shopping cart at Market Basket for a joke.
Uh-huh.
And because I'd be absorbed in what I'm looking at, all of a sudden there's this crash. It's George, with his long beard and his cowboy hat. And he was the guy who went around and pitched this idea to people in the city. And unfortunately, he didn't get the credit that was due. So I just want to say right now, if this is going to be broadcast, that remember that George Saulnier was the guy who started.
I'm really grateful because let me pause and do like a commercial, so to speak.
Yeah.
These In Focus podcasts are part and parcel to the Artist Index. It's a brainchild of Jeffrey Watton from Spectrum Marketing Group here in the city of New Bedford. And we started this, several years ago as the Artist Profiles. And the idea was about putting creating a directory of all the artists that were emerging, established, and emeritus. Those who, and then not realizing back then, even trying to get estates, but also trying to go back in time and picking up all of the artists that people forgot about. And George Solier is, wow. I mean,
he's forgotten.
Yeah.
But not by all people. I mean, Lee Heald knows of him.
Yeah.
Chuck Hawk, the president of Gallery X here in New Bedford, knows of him. They didn't have the best relationship at times, but
right.
That aside, I mean, George was a very creative person, and with his glass and his leather, he sold things a lot. He was very involved with, what is it? The association that's part of the New Bedford Art Museum now. They used to be down where Kroll's was.
Yeah, Artworks.
Artworks.
Right.
He was also very involved with Artworks.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, sad to say, he didn't get the credit that was due to him.
Right.
Not that he probably would have basked in it. He would humbly would have accepted it, but his character deserves more looking into. That's what I'll say about that.
Well, and then to go back to where we jumped off, back in the early 80s, I worked at Freestones, which was the place to go to, the restaurant in the city. It was there for like 30-something years. And I remember working there and thinking that we were the only lights on at night downtown, because downtown wasn't a place you really wanted to hang around back in the early 80s. And if you went beyond the edge of the light that was cast by Freestones, you were taking a risk. But prior to that, I had worked for the Office of Historic Preservation and Tony Souza with the city of New Bedford. We watched them move the Rodman House from its location behind Freestones into the side, around, and to where it is presently. And that's another story for another podcast. But New Bedford was asleep. After 5, 6 o'clock, that was it.
Right.
And then going to the first AHA and seeing, I don't remember seeing crowds like that since the New Bedford Institution for Savings, a major local bank, brought in Mitch Miller to do Christmas carols, a sing-along. I mean, the place was mobbed. It was absolutely amazing. Everybody was, all the bars were going, the restaurants were going, little shops were going, there were little presentations and performances, and it's still going now. How many years has AHA been going?
Oh,
we'll have to get Lee Heald here,
It's beyond 10, I think. And it goes back to what you said about the merchants expecting this immediate growth. I mean, it started very slowly. When I first came back to New Bedford and got my studio in 2001, it was very quiet then, and I saw things grow. You got No Problemo, a bunch of guys, or I forget who the owner is. He started in that little corner, which used to be the peanut store 100 years ago, and he eventually grew and took over another little bit of real estate, opened a bar, got a liquor license. Other places across the street were now serving beer. So now the students had a place to go after class. Great Mexican food. Have a beer. Whatever.
And I don't want to say inexpensive, but it was a great value. I mean, you get the gordito, the burrito. Oh my God, that's like a meal for 2 people.
Absolutely. It's all good. Here's a plug for
No Problemo. I remember them.
Great fresh food.
I remember them. The peanut store, which was an icon. It was a keystone of the downtown back then, before even Joe Jesus bought it, and that's another story. And I remember then there was an insurance agency that started in there, and then these 2 kids with looked like a sunbeam griddle. That's what it was, and a little sign which still exists today. There's a little tiny handmade sign. It couldn't be larger than a business envelope. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wish him luck. And from those beginnings, and one of my students was involved from BCC, Bristol Community College. And when I walked in there and he looked at me and he said, yeah, I know you're disappointed in me. I'll never forget that. It's like,
really?
No, I mean, this is like very cool. I mean, you find your own path, you find your own way. So it has become very, very, very vibrant. And I noticed that there's in between 2015 and 2017, I was away, overseas for about a year and getting reestablished in several different ways, life-wise and everything. And, having fresher eyes and noticing that all these little islands that we used to have are now all being connected by bridges. And there is really this incredible vibrancy downtown and the historic district. I'm not even going to try to. It's the National Whaling.
Oh,
New Bedford National Whaling Historic. I can never.
Historical Park.
Oh my God! It's somebody will correct
it's a
us.
Mouthful.
But so that was another notch in the city's belt. To come back to a point of, we're still got a way to go to chase the greatness of the city. At one time, it was the richest city in the world twice.
Right.
Once for whaling and once for textiles. So, as an artist and artisan, because you're both, what's your take on what's going on now, and what, can you use some spidey sense to look into the future?
Well, I look back at the past, and of course we've reminisced here. I used to work at the peanut shop too as a kid, but that whole vibrancy that was downtown New Bedford is here in a different way. Unfortunately, some of the retail stores aren't doing too well. Galleries come and go, which is sad. People, you're not buying enough art in New Bedford, so get out your checkbook and get down there and buy some stuff. They're doing some great things, trying to access the waterfront again. Route 18 was, I think, the worst thing. A lot of people would agree, the worst thing that ever happened to downtown New Bedford, because it blocked the waterfront from the downtown area. Yeah. We're getting a lot of tourists now, a lot of boats that are coming in, and they have to cross this highway to get to where the cool stuff is. The cobblestone streets and the restored buildings that, again, thank you, Whale, for not letting these things being torn down. They're working on Route 18 right now, which is great. What do I see for the future? Growth. Yeah, I think they're on the right track.
Speaking of right track, do you think the finally, I mean, we're both old enough to have been hearing most of our lives, because we're not dead yet, the railroad's coming back, the railroad's coming back, the railroad's coming back, and now supposedly they're rebuilding the lines, they're doing all the trestles.
Right.
We're going to have 2 stations in town now. One downtown, I think.
For people to argue about whether or not to have a station on Church Street or someplace else, I think that's a good argument, because at least it's positive. There's a train station coming. Where it's going to be, we don't know.
Yeah,
but that's a good
the argument isn't what the heck do we need one for? It's like where it should be.
Right.
So they're becoming involved and invested.
Exactly.
Okay.
I've been hearing about this train since I moved back to New Bedford.
Yeah.
People are like, ho hum, whatever. I guess it's a lot closer than it was, because for the past 15 years, at least, they've been repairing track, like you said, rebuilding trestles, rebuilding bridges, doing things like that, which is great. I see a lot of improvement with the infrastructure in the city. I
mean, I still remember the waning days of the railroad, and then living in Europe for a year. Really give up your car. I mean, you just don't know what you're doing to yourself. It's so much easier to go to Boston. You pay them, give the man your ticket. You sit there. You can read. You can sleep. You can do whatever you want. There's no stress. There's no strain.
Right.
It's an altered lifestyle, but it's a much better kind of a lifestyle as well. And it's not just about us getting out of here. It's about people coming in.
Right. That's where I think would be a big shot in the arm, another big shot in the arm for New Bedford. both for merchants and for the artists. You get these people who come in from the outside and discover this jewel. You know, it's got a great history, and I'm so tired of reading stuff about New Bedford being like one of the scariest cities to go to. They're number 3 in scariness. It's, you know, come on. It's no worse than any other city.
No. I mean, they said the same and say the same about my wife's hometown of Detroit. I remember going to Detroit to meet her family and people saying, "Do you really want to go there?"
Yeah.
And I got there and it's like, oh my God, this is such a great place.
You know, you can say it about Boston. You can
Yeah.
say it about Providence.
Yeah.
You could probably say it about Cambridge.
Right.
So, yeah, you know, every city has places that you don't want to walk in after dark.
Right.
So don't walk there.
Don't go there. Yeah,
Right.
it's like Henny Youngman. Doctor, it hurts when I do this.
Then don't do that.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So you brought up a point that's been gnawing at me for a long time, and I actually wrote an article for South Coast for Artscope magazine about this. You know, we have these accolades that were placed in 4, you know, credible surveys, national, international surveys, and yet the last classic, and what I mean by classic gallery, is a gallery that is run by a gallerist curator. They have solo shows, they have group shows, they represent some of the people that they exhibit, and but it was a gallery, that was their only business. We have other galleries now, and there's plenty of them in the Hatch Street Studios building that are actually hybrids. You have an artist's studio, and they have a gallery of their own work, and sometimes they have their other people exhibiting there and so on and so forth. And there are other forms of hybrid galleries. But a classical gallery, the very last one, and that's a whole another story, was the Colo Colo, run by Luis Villanueva, who had some phenomenal, top-notch, big city feel, presentation, shows with international artists there, not just the local folks. And he decided he was had to make some readjustments because he saw a shift, a seismic shift in the art world as it is. And so we have all these people producing work. I'm assuming they're exhibiting it someplace else, if not just online. And the sales. I mean, I'm a painter. It's so totally different. Here, I was doing okay in Europe. Of course, I wasn't there long enough, but in the first 4 months of being there, I already had 3 shows lined up. That kind of vibrancy, the kind of thing where people would ask you, "What do you do? Hello, nice to meet you. Oh, I'm a painter." "You are? Have I seen your work? Is your work currently being exhibited? Where is it?" Right. Here, "Oh, you're a painter? You make a living doing that?"
What's your side job?
What's your side job?
You must be a teacher.
You must be a teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
well, I feel the same way. I mean, being a 3D person, and there's another person in my building who makes furniture, and it's kind of a running joke. I mean, we have all these great ideas, and we make these pieces of furniture. We make prototypes out of plywood, and then make the real thing out of walnut and whatever. And you exhibit it at certain places, and it ends up in your home or in a corner of your studio with a blanket over it. And you have a second job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just painters. So, excuse me. I don't know.
No, I it's funny when you said that. It's like, how many paintings can you stuff under your bed?
Exactly.
Before you have to lift its legs. Maybe you can make a business just making leg lifters for beds. So, have little steps to go up on the side like in colonial times.
Or just, renting lofts for people who can store their paintings.
Yeah. Well, you have a tenant in Hatch Street. He's also a friend of mine and colleague. He's an incredible collector, Dr. Richard Connor. I hope to get him on the show as well. And one of the things that he alerted me to is estates. How many artists who have passed away have, I hate to use the word saddled, but have saddled their family with massive amounts of work that they don't know. These people were making money during their lifetime, but now their network is they're disconnected. The family never paid attention. Do you throw it away? It's too much to store.
Well, here's another sidebar. Another very talented artist, Nancy Hayes.
Okay.
Who was a ceramicist and now is a painter.
Okay.
My God, her work is phenomenal. She's trying to. She can't give her work away. I mean, it's not that she's not exhibiting and not
I understand
selling
what
her
you're
work.
saying. Yeah.
But at one point in time, she thought, maybe it would be a good idea to see if some place like Harvard University would want my work. I would bequeath my work to them. Well, they said, sorry, no thanks, we don't have any room, or whatever. Some people can't give their work away.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
It's crazy. Well, they look great in your office.
Yeah, this is. I'll give it a plug. Jeff came up with a concept called Gallery SMG, and he said, like, we've got all these offices. We have this really nice office, and we have all this wall space. So something a little bit different. Yeah, it is a hybrid where we haven't figured out the schedule yet. Say every month, every 6 weeks or so, we're going to invite somebody to come in, hang up their work. And then we started talking about doing the traditional gallery opening and so on and so forth. But you know what? Even when galleries were doing well, the only people we'd ever see at gallery openings was each other.
That's the same, the joke that Don Wilkinson and, oh God, what's his name, the sculptor? He had a studio on Center Street. John Magnum.
Oh, John Magnum, yeah.
Came up with that phrase.
Yeah.
The openings are great, but we see the same, 20 people at every opening.
Yeah. So with that in mind, why not create like the Chamber of Commerce has these business after hours? It's a networking event,
right?
Where we know that other artists are going to be here. Let's try to invite curators, gallerists, estate buyers, art consultants, anybody that's involved in the art industry. In fact, that's, I guess, a relatively up and coming term, the art industry, because that's basically what it is. They said that art produces the creative element in this country produces enough revenue. It's close to what the agricultural industry.
Really?
Something. I need somebody to look that up. But wow. But it reminds me of a scene from Forrest Gump where he's in a hospital and he's laying on his stomach because he had been wounded. That famous scene where Bubba gets killed and he's in Vietnam and he's licking an ice cream cone, and a gentleman said to him, so what are you in here for, boy? He says, I got shot in the buttocks. and the other character says, well, you got yourself $1 million wound. And he looks at him and he goes, well, the government must have kept that check. I ain't seen a dime. That kind of thing. Mike, this is
anyway.
Great. Any parting words? Anything? You've got your 15 minutes of fame, so to speak. This is an opportunity, a soapbox to say something about yourself, specifically, and your craft and your art. And
really.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, get your address, your phone number, your email.
I mean, well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, visit my website, floatingstonewoodworks.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook.
And we'll have all that on the little sidebar thing for the podcast.
I'm still making furniture. Restoring furniture is a little bit of bread and butter, and the kitchen utensils and cheese boards are always, unique gifts for the holidays and birthdays and weddings and hostess gifts and all that good stuff. But yeah, keep those commissions coming in, because that's where the real bread and butter is.
Exactly. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now that we're at the end, I'm going to tell you that you are our first official guest, because it's taken a long time to try to get lives arranged and schedules and so on and so forth. But you are our first official guest, and this has been great, because I think when I play this back,
You'll know where all the mistakes are.
Well, no. We've got so many sidebars that we can go to, and that's the whole purpose of this, is to get people talking and sharing their memories and their thoughts and so on and so forth, because really, once we're gone, this is all that's going to be left of us is our work and these recordings and so on and so forth. Hopefully that will help somebody in the future.
Well, I know I gave a few plugs, which I think are well-deserved. All kidding aside, I think one of the best things that ever happened was to have Jeff Glassman purchase this building and do what he did, because in sort of the state of flux Hatch Street was in when the original owners moved out and we knew the building was for sale, people were starting to leave, people were starting to freak out. We were looking at what sort of gentrification is going to come here. Mm-hmm. They're going to raise the rent and kick us all out. Jeff came in, he's keeping the rents reasonable, and he's done so much for the art community in New Bedford. And he's involved in so much downtown and other agencies, mm-hmm. Other groups. Mm-hmm. I can only say thanks to him, and a big thanks to George Saulnier for thinking of AHA, and thanks to the people who are running it today and keeping it alive.
Great. We'll have to have Jeff Glassman here too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks so much.
Thank you.